Are we ready?
Yeah.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. Let's see. The board met in executive session for 30 minutes, about 38 minutes really, prior to discuss some legal and personnel matters. And we'll move on down the list here. We got the pledge out of the way. Oh yeah, we've got Ms. Stanton and Ms. Grant are absent this evening and excused. Erin is joining us via Zoom. And we will move right to recognition. Is that correct?
We are ready for our first recognition tonight. If you're good.
I'm good.
All right.
Do you need me?
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we begin our meeting with some well-deserved recognition of one of our own. We're here to recognize at this time his retirement from our district, but I'll ask Mr. George Drozen to step up here beside me. Spot right there, okay? George has been with us for 12 years as our middle school principal, but in reality, George has been with us in Lewisburg for many years. George came home to live and serve the Lewisburg district, having been a graduate of our high school. He was a student in our middle school and high school, and he returned to his hometown with the knowledge and the understanding of our community and our schools. He brought his background understanding and his avid interest to our schools. The students, the staff, and the work in our community were George's work for 12 years. I have long admired his passion and his genuine interest and commitment to middle school students. George did his undergraduate studies at Colgate and began his career in education as a certified biology teacher. He returned to Lewisburg to live and work after serving as both a teacher and an assistant principal in New Hampshire. George, it is my professional honor and pleasure to share with you this certificate, and indulge me a bit while I read for our group. Distinguished Career in Education Award. In deep appreciation for 12 and a half years of dedication to education in the Lewisburg Area School District, for believing in children, for sharing not only your knowledge but your heart, for guiding by example, for inspiring with passion, for touching the human soul, and for leaving an indelible mark on the future. You have made all the difference. Awarded to George Drozen by the Lewisburg Area Board of School Directors on this day, January 11, 2024. I've asked a few of your fellow administrators to share a few comments as well. Mr. Long?
Sure. So I came to the district about a year and a half ago. George, first of all, was a friendly face. He was over here in the high school because of construction going on in the middle school. Inclusive, very, very good at helping get me acclimated, first of all, which I thank you for, George. But then most recently, in his role as he transitioned to the special assistant to the superintendent, I believe, right? So as he transitioned to that, he's also helped with school safety, which is one of my roles. And I'm very thankful as George worked through the documents, updating documents, working on emergency buckets and things like that. And we were able to hash through some things and propose things that we thought were important so that people can make decisions as to what was the most important as we try to make our schools as safe as possible. And I learned then that George really has a passion for that and had a passion through that as a principal at the middle school. So, and that is thankful and something to look up to and something to strive for as an administrator, and that any of us could strive to do. So I thank you, George, for that. As we go about our lives, we all interact with people in different ways. I hope to still see you around and enjoy that, and happy retirement.
Michael.
Sure. George, you're so important. I'm a guy that just goes, don't prepare notes, just a couple bullet points. I type something out. That's how important you are. So brace yourself here. So I really don't know how to get started other than to ask, how does one become an Indianapolis Colts fan? It's just so random. Oh, okay, all right. It makes a little more sense, but as a Steelers fan, the whole Baltimore thing, I promise this won't be a roast, okay? But you served the middle school for 12 years. That's a long time. What I've quickly learned as a school administrator is administration years are like dog years. So 12 times 7 is 84, and that's a lot of time serving the middle school. So kudos to you. During your 84 years at the middle school, you embodied the middle school model, a model that was innovated by a school administrator at Lewisburg who walked the halls in the district many years before you and probably before I was born. That model meant a lot to you. You understood that even in a high-achieving district and a high-achieving school, educating the whole child remains critical. You knew that a child's successful development through adolescence is highly dependent on trusting relationships with adults. And you ensured that every student had the opportunity to make their middle school experience as fulfilling as possible. When I was in my first day in your old office, in the principal's office, I found a book from 1966 that you left behind for me. Thank you so much. And it was about the middle school model. The concluding paragraph, in the concluding paragraph, the author notes that the recommendations throughout the text be used, and I quote, in whatever way will be most beneficial in educating today's children. It's no surprise that the author of this book was, guesses? Who? Donald Eichhorn, and I'm pretty sure I brought it. There it is. So, George, you've done an excellent job of ensuring that Eichhorn's words were not lost with the passage of time. For me as a teacher under you for 7 years, it was evident that you understood how your decisions impacted others. As a human being, we often put on blinders when thinking about a decision. We naturally focus on how doing something or not doing something, and I should say someone else doing or not doing something impacts us. Simple, just do it, right? It's best for me. But it's not that simple, and I've quickly learned that, and you knew that. As a school leader, there are few decisions that only impact one person. You're always careful to analyze how a decision, no matter how insignificant it may seem, impacted all parties and everyone involved in education. As a former special educator myself, your thoughtfulness to how decisions impact our children who need us the most will forever be respected and remembered. You trusted your teachers, you encouraged innovation, and you thought about all of us outside of our roles as teachers and staff members. You should know that is noticed and appreciated. Just to ensure you weren't hearing from me tonight, I asked some 8th graders, who you were their principal for 2 years, or in dog years, 14 years, to help me with something. I tasked students with giving me a word or a sentence to describe you. So brace yourself. That's what they came up with. Patient, nice to people, and the student explained. You would
talked to them about how their day was, laid back, and then the student clarified, in a good way, you were not intimidating. I thought I went through these old. Sorry, I thought I went through them. I apologize. Open, and you listen to others, approachable, and my favorite, caring. He always seemed like if you needed him, he was there. I don't know how that old card got in there, but that's really all about perception, right? You're the youngest 2024 Lewisburg Area School District retiree. Disclaimer, 2024 so far, but I know that's how you're thinking of it. You're a glass half full kind of guy. Being a principal in Lewisburg was special to George. As a Lewisburg grad, this is home for you. It was clear that this really meant something to you every day. You wore your dragon pride on your sleeve, and I know you'll continue to do so. On behalf of all the middle school staff and students, thank you and congratulations on a well-deserved retirement.
I'll have to follow that up, but I'll do my best there. I think a theme that's already been mentioned is pride, and I think that's something as educators we wish to instill in our kids, in our staff and our families, to have pride in the school and pride in the district, pride in the town. And I think you embody that. Being a Lewisburg grad, having that perspective, in all that you did, you had that pride, and that's such an important thing. Showing up every day with that passion and pride. Being a middle school person, that's your passion. Some of us are terrified of that age group. I think that was, you never ever mentioned that. You always said they were your people. You loved those kids. You loved that age group. And that was evident. I didn't get to work in the building with you, but that message was made clear in all of our interactions and interacting with the families, with the students, and with the staff. And you fully invested in your job and making sure you were doing all you could at such a critical time for those kids in their development to help them be successful human beings, successful citizens, whether they stayed in our area or whether they spread their wings and went far away. Attending events outside of middle school events. We see you at high school events, at sporting events, always in your Lewisburg gear. And I feel like that's just going to continue even in retirement. You're going to be there because that's just who you are, and you really truly care about this district and this community. Also greatly appreciated coming on board as you were already part of the admin team, your perspective, being able to really think through complex situations, and you had a very analytical mindset. As Michael stated, thinking through different perspectives, what the ripple effects of decisions are going to be. Working through COVID and all we made it through, like there were so many things we could have never expected. And I think having you as part of our team was just such a valuable asset for all of us. I always appreciated bouncing ideas off of you. I mean, you can give policies by number, by not missing a single word in the entire policy. And I'm just wondering, do we have a policy for this? And you're just spitting it out for me. But having that perspective, and then mixing in your humor as well as we go through, and very frequently sprinkling in jobs that you've had. It took the whole career that I worked with you here to figure out most of your jobs. I'm sure there's still more, but we could be talking through a complex situation, and then he would just share a tale how he was quality control checking the size of meatballs at Chef Boyardee, and tell you the exact size that they needed to maintain. From hallway monitor, just every job that you had. It was great just to hear how even that shaped you and your perspective and how that impacted you in your professional life as a middle school principal. As Michael said too, you cared for the kids. You cared for the kids, you also cared for us, and I think that was something, as we go through many things and we have ourselves to kind of bounce ideas off of, in a small room, you're there and we know that you do truly care for us as people, talking to us about our lives outside of school, how our family's doing, how break was, just what our plans are. It just made for just a very positive experience and a positive admin team. So I thank you for all you did. You always gave 100%. There was no question of that. You will be greatly missed. You were such a valuable resource and asset to our team, and I feel helped shape me professionally. So I thank you for that.
And we still hope to see you around, and don't put your phone down or change your number, because we'll be reaching out to you. But we wish you the best in retirement. Hopefully the weather gets better soon, the golf course dries out, and you can make your way out there as much as possible. Thank you.
I'm humbled, and thank you so very much. Thank you, Kathy. It was the first time sitting in a chair other than at the table since the day that I was confirmed by the board to be the middle school principal. And it kind of all is flooding back to me. I do know that I have been very fortunate, blessed to be given the opportunity to give back to my community, our community, to the school, and it truly has always been home, even with the almost 20 years in New Hampshire. Lewisburg was always home. And the day my mom called me and said, "Oh, Lewisburg has a job opening, you should apply." And that was a life changer, and all for the better. I am so grateful to have been given the opportunity. I hope I did half of what these folks said I did on a daily basis. But in the last couple of weeks, I've been able to reflect a little bit on what I'll miss, what I won't miss, how I will be moving forward, what I'll be doing moving forward. I know for an absolute fact, what I'll miss the most are the people sitting at the table, Mrs. Moser, the kids, the families. But it's a part of that community that I feel attached to, and hopefully I always will feel attached to it. So thank you. Thank you all. It has been a privilege and an honor. Thank you.
Our next item is another wonderful positive for the district. January is the month when we as a district join the Pennsylvania School Board Association in public recognition of the tireless interest and service that is the true dedication of our school board directors here in the Lewisburg district. They volunteer hours of time in their commitment to our schools. Whether championing students and parents, supporting staff, or advocating for the merits and value of public education in our community, we appreciate you as leaders and partners in our work and service. Your guidance and leadership roles are reflected in the PSBA principles as follows. You are charged to lead responsibly, to act ethically, to plan thoughtfully, to evaluate continuously, to communicate clearly, to advocate earnestly, and to govern effectively. That's a tremendous set of expectations, and it takes energies, commitment, and collaboration to bring these responsibilities to realization. I know full well we are most fortunate to have you in your elected roles as our board of directors, working together to make those PSBA principles our reality. To recognize your role in our learning organization, we began a practice a number of years ago. to place books in your individual names in each of our 4 school libraries. Our librarians, Diane Pauling and Deborah Hornberger, together with Mrs. Young, worked to select the books. They are at each of your places to see our choices for this year. It is my pleasure to express heartfelt gratitude for your good work. On behalf of the Lewisburg Area School District, our thanks, our gratitude, and our appreciation as you serve the greater Lewisburg community. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. And if you want to arrange to take one out to read, you'll have to check it out in the library. Okay, thank you.
All right. With that, we'll move on to our academic spotlight for the night.
I am delighted to introduce Mrs. Heidi Hostler and Mrs. Claire Galt, our 2 family and consumer science teachers, for their presentation as our academic spotlight this evening. Ladies, please go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Moser. As introduced, I'm Claire Galt.
And I'm Heidi Schwarz-Hostler. I'm at the middle school
And I'm at the high school. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting us to share what our programming and curriculum looks like with all of you. We're excited to show some evolution that's happened over the years of family consumer sciences and what we've got going on today. So first off, when I first started teaching here at Lewisburg, it's about like 9 years now, going through my textbooks that I found, that I inherited from my predecessor. I found a textbook from the 1950s, 60s sort of time, and there was an entire chapter on how a woman should greet her husband when he gets home from work. And it highlighted, make sure to freshen up your makeup from working all day and take off that dirty apron and put on a beautiful gown and make sure the children are in clean clothing and playing quietly and don't forget to have a martini at the door. And I quickly threw it away as we began, which I'm sad because that's a piece of history, but I can't find it anymore. But things have changed in the world of family consumer sciences over the years quite a bit. So how have we changed? Actually, and Heidi has some of this lived experience as well too.
I had to laugh when Claire shared this with me, that this is how she wanted to start tonight's explanation of what we do and how things have changed. Because I grew up with that mentality of my mom, who had taken home ec in the 1950s and 60s. She taught me as a toddler and preschooler that at the end of the day, we change our clothes and get pretty for daddy to come home. And so that fell right in with what Claire had been sharing that she had found in this textbook. John, can you? Thanks. So I actually took home ec in the late 1970s. And at that point in time, it was only girls that took that class. And on the left-hand side, you'll see the apron. That was my first home ec project. We had to complete an apron before we could cook. Notice the frills on the shoulders? That's because it was only girls who took home ec. That was my 7th grade sewing project. My 8th grade sewing project was the skirt you see on the right. We had to do a skirt with a zipper. Most of the girls did a zipper in the center back. I was a little more advanced. I did a side zipper, and I had to match plaids based on the fabric I chose. This was what home ec was in the 1970s. And looking back, it came partially from this sewing manual recommendation from 1949 from Singer, talking about how you should have this attitude about sewing, but only after you took care of the dishes and things like that. So we've evolved. Just wait, we'll show you.
So first of all, most obviously, it's family consumer sciences, whereas the older name for our content was home ec or home economics. So we have a new name, which is has been around for a little bit now. And we also are really inclusive of all types of students. So we have Equal parts boys and girls taking our classes. Mine are all elective at the high school. It is part of the curriculum of the middle school method of everyone like getting well-rounded experiences at the middle school. So we are able to have like such a wide variety and diverse sect of students who take our classes.
So at middle school, showing the boys love my class. They walk in at first and go, cooking, sewing, that's not something, that's not what I want to do, that's not cool, that's not a guy thing. By the end of the 15 classes that I have them, the boys are actually outshining the girls a lot of times because they take this on as a challenge and they thrive with it. I also have the experience, and I don't know how much Claire might experience this at the high school. Some of our students at the middle school who really struggle with their core classes and some of their other specials really thrive in my class. It's practical stuff. It's hands-on stuff. It's stuff that they can go and practice at home. So they thrive with it with me where they might be struggling in other places. So my daughter, who is a teacher in Virginia, found this on the wall in a building that she was in for a professional development day. And she said, wait, that's what you say about facts. That's what your t-shirt says about facts. And it's, adulting really isn't that hard. Family and consumer science is what shows kids how to be adults. We give them those skills that help them move into the adult world.
Family consumer sciences has really grown to encompass a wide variety of topics instead of just cooking and sewing and childcare. We still have all those concepts, but at a much higher complex level, and also have really adapted a lot of other skills and practices and concepts into our curriculum. And here's just a starting list of some of the topics that we can cover. We've also really seen throughout our world and in the media a renaissance of some home crafts, people wanting to know where their food comes from, wanting to provide for themselves, wanting to be able to set themselves up for the future, wanting to build generational wealth, wanting to navigate our world during high inflation times, wanting to engage in gentle parenting. So there's sort of been a renaissance of these home skills that have always been important, and we can jump onto that trend even more now and kind of reinforce these topics in our courses.
So this slide's kind of showing some of the things that we do, but one of the ones I really wanted to emphasize, and Claire found this great picture. It shows a part of a sewing machine. It says troubleshooting your sewing machine. Encountering that a lot in the middle school the last couple of days. We've had some injuries to some of our sewing machines, and we've had to find ways to work around that. And that's one of the biggest things that students learn in family and consumer science is problem solving. We are presented in our classrooms with lots of different problems that need to be solved, and the kids see us solving those problems, me with my broken sewing machines, and that helps them learn how to stay calm and work through the problem solving process too.
Right, we really take social and emotional learning and embed it in all of our curriculum, problem solving for sure, and overcoming obstacles, facing failures and turning them into successes, learning from mistakes, finding your passions, and taking what we learn in class into real world situations, like at the high school in particular. I do some career searching and some resume building, and then students will come back to class the next day and say, I got a job. So like it works. They go out and are able to apply it. So like we said before, I teach at the high school and Heidi teaches at the middle school. So I just wanted to give a snapshot of what Family Consumer Sciences looks like here at the high school. So I have 6 different electives that I teach, and they are all electives. So there are students that choose to take them if they're interested. So I've got baking and pastries, which is really exploring the science behind baking, chemistry in that sort of sense. I have culinary, which is the secondary level course to baking and pastries, where we explore foods through cultures. I also have food and nutrition, which we talk a lot about, like our physical bodily needs, digestive system sort of setups, and also research-based nutritional information, because there's like a lot of myths in the nutrition world, because you can profit off of myths, I guess you could say. So we really try to break down to those myths and find what our body really needs and how we can fuel our body. I have a child development course where we get to look at physical, social, emotional, and cognitive development throughout the years. Of a course that is called Surviving the Real World, which is kind of picking and choosing different topics from the family and consumer sciences umbrella and putting them all into one class. So a little bit of food and nutrition, a little bit of consumerism, a little bit of personal finance, whole bunch of things. And I do also have a fiber arts class where we do sewing and fashion handcrafts as well. So I just wanted to show some highlights from those classes. Today was a fun day in culinary. We had our Iron Chef competition as we're coming to the end of our semester. And so I have 2 classes. Each class got a secret ingredient that they had to incorporate into a dish. And today we had some judges, some chefs from our community come in and judge, some teachers that are available during that block come in and judge their dishes. And here's our 2 winners. So this is hot off the press, finished just a couple hours ago. We had a secret ingredient of potatoes, and this group of ladies at the top made homemade pierogies, and they took first place. And then my other class had a secret ingredient of ginger, and we have a honey ginger glazed salmon that took the first place prize in that class. In child development, we have a really awesome opportunity by being next door to Kelly Elementary that we get to have access to work with kids. We go over and work at the Miss Brockway's pre-K class to do activities with them. And we also invite classes to come over and do cooking activities with my child development students. So just showing a little highlight of what this looked like the other day. My high schoolers led them in doing some recipes together. Yes, we let first graders have hammers, so it was a lot of fun. I mentioned before, I really try to embody the science in family consumer sciences, whether that's getting research-based content to be teaching from or exploring the physical science of cooking. So both in baking and pastries and food and nutrition, we really try to delve into the science of food chemistry and how that works. For example, in the upper right-hand corner, depending on where you're sitting, we make sourdough bread where we cultivate our own wild yeast, collect it and grow it over several weeks, and then make our own sourdough bread, which is a really fun experience. In the upper left, we learn what makes a wholly dried out muffin versus a regular, nice, light and fluffy sort of muffin, different sort of mixing techniques that can get us to that end. And in food and nutrition, we look at sneaky ways to incorporate different types of foods into your diet. This is a chocolate mousse, but it's made out of silken tofu, so it's a really high protein version of a chocolate mousse. This year I entered a competition with all my family consumer sciences classes. It was with the Popcorn Pep Club, which I love popcorn and I'm very peppy, so it's right up my alley. And I haven't heard back yet, so I don't know if we won or placed yet. I'll let you know. But it was essentially just a challenge to celebrate popcorn somewhere in your classes. This is on YouTube if you want to watch the full thing. We can maybe watch like a minute or so of the intro here.
Lewisburg Area High School presents, in partnership with the Popcorn Pep Club, a celebration of popcorn. We love popcorn.
I love popcorn. Go drive in. I love popcorn. 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 love popcorn.
He loves popcorn.
Even our tickets love popcorn.
Popcorn makes us dance.
If you're interested in seeing all of the recipes that we made, it is on YouTube. You can just search my name if you're interested. In Surviving the Real World, I take a lot of the personal finance and consumerism into that class. So we do comparative shopping, what's the better buy when you're in the grocery store? How can you get the most bang for your buck? How can you not get tricked by scams? That sort of thing. And finally, I do have a fiber arts class where students have a lot of liberty in making the types of things they want to make. We do a challenge called a thrift flip where they get things for like $5 at the thrift store. And we go to, is that the Salvation Army? Or the Goodwill, that's right by Walmart, and they can have $5 to buy something, and then they come back and tailor it or flip it into something different. So on the left here, this is Hazel. And she got the pants and the shirt for $5. Crazy. And she was able to make it into a crop top, and she tailored the pants to fit her, which were too big. And then we also just have opportunities for students to make passion projects, like a cell phone holder, which is what that little blob thing is there, or a tote bag, things like that. So we have a lot of fun stuff going on at the high school, and it's really a joy to teach. And Heidi can share a little bit about what happens in the middle school.
So at the middle school, because of the middle school model that we follow, I see every single student over the course of the year. I see them each 15 times, which kind of limits a little bit what we can do, but we make it work. In 6th grade, we talk about kitchen safety, food safety, kitchen math, learning how to measure things, and an introduction to ingredients, because believe it or not, I have students who come into the middle school, and it happened today, they don't know the difference between flour and sugar in appearance. So I had a group of students add their flour to their butter when they should have added their sugar. We made it work. Their cookies turned out okay, but we have to have these discussions about what do ingredients look like and which is which. In 7th grade, we talk about sewing. They actually produce a product on the sewing machine. They do a pillowcase as a guided project, and then they make a fabric wallet as an independent project. It uses the same skills as the pillowcase. So we talk about sewing vocabulary. We learn how to use sewing machines, hopefully, and not break them. We do some hand sewing work. We do basic sewing construction. They're not doing anything with zippers like I did in 8th grade, but they are learning how to sew a straight line. They're learning how to measure with a yardstick and cut with scissors, because something happens to them between kindergarten and 7th grade and they don't know how to hold scissors. So we work on holding scissors correctly. In 8th grade, I do a kind of an intro to Claire's, a simplified version of Claire's Surviving the Real World class, and I call it #adulting. I give them the floor plan of an apartment, and they get to furnish that, and then we have to furnish it on a budget. They do some meal planning. We talk about comparison shopping like Claire does, to try and stay under. I'm generous. I give them $80 a week for themselves as an individual. If I can do it for $50 a week, they should be able to do it for $80. We talk about laundry and clothing repair, some manners. If you're a parent, you should have gotten a thank you note from Stuart. Did he give you?
I haven't gotten that yet, but I will.
Ask him.
Tomorrow morning, first thing,
He
good to
was
know.
supposed to write you a thank you note last
Alright.
week, so ask him about
I
that.
always like those.
And I show them copies with all the pertinent information blanked out, but I show them some of my personal utility bills, and they actually practice writing a check. Now, we also discuss the fact that by the time they're my age, checks will be obsolete, but we practice in any case because it's good practice for writing their signature, which they struggle with too. So overall, in all of my classes, the big focus, and I tell them this when they kind of balk at using a sewing machine, overall, the big things I'm trying to get them to work on are those social emotional things, problem solving, resilience, persistence, perseverance, integrity, and most importantly, I was talking with one of my 8th graders after school today, because she stayed to work on her wallet, confidence. They come to me as middle schoolers. Confidence is lacking. They may talk like they're confident, but it's lacking. So this is building confidence. So they're learning how to use simple kitchen tools. They're learning how to clean the kitchen. Writing the check is there. Pillowcase, this was my first pair of students in the fall who were moving along on their pillowcases, and they were pretty proud. Their class, Michael actually sat in on this class. This was my awesome class in the fall, and a lot of them requested a sewing club. So most of that class is going to be in a sewing club during 3rd marking period, and they're actually going to learn how to use a commercial pattern to make an apron. And so 8th grade, 6th grade does things like cookies when they cook. 8th grade, we're actually making breakfast things. Last year, they did a breakfast buffet. I think George had some of that last year. This year, we're making Dutch babies, German pancakes. And Michael, I think you had them earlier in the fall. If not, I'll make sure you get them tomorrow. And then 8th grade, last week, they were learning how to do some simple clothing repair, and they were learning how to sew on buttons. And those 2 buttons actually were sewn on by 2 of our best basketball players in 8th grade. And they can sew. They did a really nice job, and they thought it was fun.
So thanks for hearing us out today. We're really glad to be able to share what our programming looks like with all of you. And thank you for always supporting us.
Yes,
We
thank
appreciate
you.
that.
A lot of schools are eliminating fax programs, sadly, so we are very happy to have your support at both levels.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move on to citizens' comments to the board on agenda items. Is there
We do
anything
not have any
John?
online comments on agenda items. Nope.
All right. Then take it away with your budget update, John.
Okay, we'll pull this up here. Share the screen. Go to the budget update. Okay, so just a quick update here on our preliminary budget. Since we last talked in November, as you recall, we had a preliminary deficit just north of $500,000. So we've had a few updates here. Since then, we've had a few personnel changes. One of the positives to revenues is there's been an update to our assessed values provided by the Union County Assessment Office, so you see a slight bump there. And one even better piece of news is the good people at Peasers actually dropped the rate. I was very surprised. The current year, the Peasers contribution rate is 34%. That actually went down from a previous year. And I thought, there's no way they're going to be able to do that again. Well, believe it or not, they did. It's actually dropped again to 33.9%. Now, 0.1% doesn't seem like a lot. The fact that it dropped, that's a positive. So we came down here and you can see overall we've saved about $70,000 from the original Peasers forecast rate to the actual rate there. So we've seen an improvement in our deficit, but we're not where we need to be just yet. As you can see right now, our deficit is currently at $450,000. But just to give some folks a perspective on this, that $450,000 deficit does include a 6.1% tax increase. With no tax increase, i.e. with our current revenue estimates, right now our deficit would be approximately $1.7 million. So as you can see, we've still got a long way to go and we've got some work to do. But just wanted to clarify that that is the difference in our deficit with and without the proposed maximum tax increase. Now, again, we will be working to reduce that tax increase as much as possible. We'll try to get that down as far as we can. So the next steps, will be advertising our preliminary budget here. And we'll be asking you to vote on that at our next meeting on January 25th, to vote on the proposed preliminary budget. And again, this is the preliminary budget. This is not the final budget, so nothing is final. And we'll also be asking you to vote on advertising an application for referendum exceptions, which again, in previous years we've applied for, but we have never used. And then as we go through the months towards March, April, and May, we'll be updating the budgets. We'll include any staff retirements if there are any. We're hoping to finalize our insurance rates in April. We are cautiously optimistic, cross fingers, knock on wood. And then we will ask you at the May 9th board meeting to vote on our proposed final budget, which is at least 30 days before the final budget, which we will ask you to vote on June 13th. So again, another 5 to 6 months down the road here till we get to the final budget, but just to give you a sense there of where we're at. And with that, are there any questions? Hearing none? All right.
All right. With that, we will move on to board action, old business, the Kelly wheelchair lift replacement.
Okay, so you have before you the replacement of the Kelly wheelchair lift, which is next to the stage. As we've mentioned, this is in need of repair, need of replacement, and you have before you the quote, the KPN proposed quote from the Gordian Group to do that. It's going to take some extra work. Our maintenance guys will be working on cutting out part of the wall, moving the fire alarm equipment, and I believe, what else are they doing, Delbert? Oh, okay. Yep, so we'll be doing a little bit of the prep work, but then when you approve this quote, when it comes in, it'll be installed, and then our wheelchair lift at the stage will be up to date.
Good. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Any questions? Paula, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Lyons?
Yes.
Dr. Mattis?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer?
Yes.
Ms. Hanos?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski?
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Very good. And next up is Vince.
Yep, this was for Title IX services from Whistler Pearlstein. Attorney Christina Gallagher providing us some additional special counsel for the purposes of Title IX. And we'll look to get this for approval tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions?
I do think if, just for kind of like public knowledge, a lot of times I think when people hear Title IX, they automatically
Yeah.
think of it as having as many girls' sports as boys' sports.
Yep.
So it's just a quick summary of what now kind of Title IX has evolved to and why having this is good for us.
Yeah, specifically, this is focusing on sexual harassment or discrimination. And so when issues around that topic come up, there's a process and some legal processes around it, and it changed in 2020. And we got to make sure we're offering supportive measures to students that have experienced discrimination, and then there's investigation, and there's this very long flow chart to go through, and having counsel to walk us through that process is very helpful when the situations arise. And so we did some training with Christina back in, I believe, December, and then working with her to just to look at our policy and our attachments just to see that they are where they should be. And legislation's coming out, potentially some new updates to that for probably this year as well. We want to make sure we're on top of that.
Okay, and again, we'll only be paying it when we use
As
her
needed,
services.
yep, just consulting as we need.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Paula?
Dr. Mattis?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer?
Yes.
Ms. Hanos?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski?
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lyons?
Yes.
Motion carried.
I'll take the next item. It's for our committee and liaison appointments. It's just what the board membership has agreed to in terms of committees and advisory groups and that sort of thing. So we'll need a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Second.
Can we do that by voice vote, Aaron?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. And the dreaded change order.
Yes, so this evening we are asking you to vote on HVAC change order number 1. This is related to the mechanical louvers in the, I think it's in the walls or the doors, I forget. Anyway, it's ventilation for the restrooms. And so we are asking that you approve this evening so that our ventilation remains in compliance with code for the Dragon's Den restrooms that are currently under construction.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I think that all this will remind us is that we always check our dampers and louvers for all future projects.
Yes.
And too, that if we don't do this, then we don't meet code and then we can't use the
Yes,
bathroom.
Right.
that's my understanding.
Anyone else? Paula, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Fetzer,
Yes.
Ms. Haynos,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lyons,
Yes.
Dr. Mattis,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay. And with that, we'll move right on to new business, board information, and tell us about change order number 2.
Yes, indeed. So when we were putting the Dragon's Den out past the turf field and we were prepping the site, we ran sewer line and we ran water line out to the site, and we got the pipes to the site, so we were ready to go. And then with the placement of the building and the location of the pipes coming out of the building, the architect said we will work with a 5-foot window around the location of the building. Well, unfortunately, the location of the building as it was finally set and where the pipes were brought to in the site prep wasn't quite there. So we have a few feet to cover, about 30 feet for the sewer line and about 60 feet for the water line to connect the dots, from the edge of the envelope of the building to where the pipes actually come out of the ground. So we're bringing this to you this evening for your consideration, and we will ask you to vote on it at our next meeting so that we can connect the sewer and the water line for the Dragon's Den.
Did somebody miss where to put it? Like, I don't.
So when it was run during the site prep, I don't know if we were able to locate exactly where it was. And I don't know if that information, because I
think part of the issue was when we prepped the site, we didn't know where the Dragon's Den was gonna be.
Right.
So to the best of the engineering, we designed it and ran it as far as we thought where the Dragon's Den was gonna be. Once everything went through and it was approved, the Dragon's Den actually stood over farther than what I think we really anticipated. Even when I went out there when it was around, it was a little bit farther over than what anybody thought it was gonna be. So but it's sliding over is where we're in. So the issue is not getting it far enough out. Not knowing where the Dragon's Den was gonna be.
Right, yeah.
It was hard for us for the engineers to figure out where to put it. You know,
Right.
run it too far and spend extra money, or in this case, short. Once the Dragon's Den was actually.
I just thought one of the reasons it had to be where it went was because that's where the piping had been put.
yeah, and we
We're
thought
close
it was,
to it, just not close.
yeah, it missed it by that much.
Okay.
So we'll be
Okay.
bringing that back at a future meeting. An update on our plow truck, dump truck. We had really hoped that we would be able to carry over the salt spreading equipment from the old dump truck to the new dump truck. But unfortunately, it has been revealed to us that the old salting equipment is so old that the technology and the wires needed to run it to the new truck do not exist, and we would not be able to take that old technology and put it into the new truck. So with that revelation, we are looking at bringing you a quote next time for you to vote on to attach a salt spreader to the tailgate of the truck and basically have a new style of delivering salt to our parking lots, much like what you see PennDOT trucks doing, where they load up the back, and then they tilt up the dump bed to put the salt out through a salt spreader. Right now, we have one that you open the lid and we have to use an auger and load the salt by hand in order to have it distributed. Now we would actually be able to load it directly into the, with this new style, we'd be able to load it directly into the bed of the dump truck and load that much faster, allowing us to get out into the parking lots and salt much faster than before.
Thank you, John.
So it's a wiring issue?
Partly wiring, but also, again, the parts aren't available to fix it. It's another one of those pieces of equipment that's an obsolescence where there's not, we can't get repaired, we can't get the parts to actually repair it. So we're providing you guys a good number of trying to the last winter season, because it's just the parts aren't available anymore. It's past manufactured now, so the manufacturer parts that we need to break.
Just out of curiosity, what's the age of the old one or current one?
It was here before I got here. It's at least 10 to 12 years old. I don't know exactly when it was purchased.
I think it actually might be older than that.
It could be older than that. It was been here since before I
Yeah.
got here. So it's maybe older.
Any other questions? Okay. Facilities planning update.
All right, John, if you'll cue the PowerPoint slides.
First.
Thank you.
There we go.
All right. I want to take you through a few slides overviewing a board retreat we held on December 19th. We met together in good discussion for several hours, talking about a number of facilities needs across the district. Stay on that one, John. All right. The first thing to our planning effort that evening was a discussion about some funding sources for our projects. And of course, the funding source that we're most reliant upon tends to be our capital projects budget, but we also did discuss some other funding sources. Tonight, one of our slides shows everyone some of the recent projects we have done across the buildings and on our two campuses. We then also want to make mention of some current projects that we are committed to and currently working on, and then share some of these proposed projects that are under consideration. We have some invited guests tonight to speak to some of those projects. And if you look at the breakdown on the slide, when looking at all those projects that have interest for us or possible need, they break down to a broad category, as you just heard some items, when it's repair or replacement or upgrading. That's an important part of what we review. There are a number of our projects under consideration that address safety and school security needs. And then as well, a third broad category that we'll reference in our consideration are some athletic improvements. Go ahead, Sean. I mentioned funding sources, and the only thing I call attention to, as you see from the slide, we've got an ongoing budgetary account for repairs and improvements and new projects known as the Capital Fund, and we often reference that here in our board meetings and discussions. We are always and ever appreciative of our foundation, and they've been a wonderful partner and resource whenever we give consideration to projects. I listed here grants as well. We have opportunity to apply for grants, and from time to time, some have really proven to be beneficial for our use. We just today received new PCCD monies for both school safety and mental health concerns. Other grants are competitive, and certainly we're open to making applications for those resources as well. And finally, I list here Sponsorships, a newer concept for us to seek some new partners in our good work toward our facilities. Go ahead, please. It's small font, but if you take a look at a short list, it's by no means comprehensive, but I thought there was value to be ever mindful of the numbers of projects, even over more recent years, that the district has been involved with. And so again, they're by timeline delineated, but the project listed and the resources involved, the monies involved in taking care of our facilities. Anything from kitchen floors to fob access to needlepoint bipolar ionization system, which then led to our HVAC modernization, and on down through the list. As you see, we have been busy taking care of facilities, looking at the important needs in the district and attending to them. John? Currently, we have contractual commitment to these 3 projects. We just referenced the Dragon's Den. We have a field conversion project that will begin this spring, taking the old baseball field, converting it to grass, and creating a home playing field surface for our middle school soccer and junior high football. And we have the listing here, the 3rd one. We most recently agreed to the contractual price for the turf field bleachers for the high school. We have proposed projects under consideration. Please note, again, as I've simply listed it, we've got a number of things to consider under the broad category of when we're repairing, when we're replacing, when we're hoping to upgrade our facilities. And so you see things listed like roof restorations at the middle school in Kelly, an IT network upgrade for the middle school, possibly some locker room renovations that are much needed, to things like sidewalk repairs and improving the parking lot paving, as you see listed here. Under the broad category of safety and security, we talked during our retreat about some office reconfigurations at both Kelly and the middle school, the need to boost our signal for cell phone here in the high school, window film and window glass upgrades in some of our buildings, again, for improved school security, and the possibility of installation of bollards. And under the athletic improvements, which kind of serves as an introduction to our guests who are here with us tonight, we have listed on the slide one of the projects that we'll learn more about tonight, the high school turf field, parking lot, road construction, and tennis court project. Kind of a long name for a large project. And then a polling complex where we want to take time, effort, and resources to consider track resurfacing with the installation of a turf field at that complex. And then the lighting project as well, to improve our existing turf field here at the high school. So we are busy and we will be busy, and the next months are critical to keep us moving along in our consideration. You see that we have steps to take, everything from assessing our wishes, wants, and needs to engineering and design services, to bringing real numbers for consideration, ever mindful of the financial impact of our projects that we select to go forward with, and certainly sharing the information with our staff, with our community, and keeping everyone apprised of these projects. With our board, obviously, responsible for, again, bringing project proposals forward for information, and then moving forward on those that we choose to consider to take on, and bringing those projects forward toward completion. I'm the opening act and introduction, gentlemen. We have 2 items of additional information, 2 projects to share with you this evening. It is my pleasure to introduce Jeff Sellers, Andy Harper, Matt Harlow, and our own community member, Matt Markounis. And I believe, gentlemen, the one that we're first ready to hear information about is the high school turf parking lot, road construction, and tennis court project. Welcome.
Should I pull up the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jeff Sellers, with Keystone Sports Construction. Thank you for a few moments of your time this evening to share some visions that we've been discussing with the administration about the projects referenced previously. Offer you some insights about who we are as an organization, the projects in detail, and so forth. So I'm going to take just a quick 5 to 7 minutes to really just give you a broad overview who we are as a company, the philosophies that we employ, and how we go about delivering showcase facilities for the partners that we've had the privilege to working with. From an organizational standpoint, we've really gained a reputation as sort of the leader as it relates to design build projects. That's taking a natural state and turning it into a synthetic turf, which could comprise, or a synthetic state, which can comprise synthetic turf fields, tracks, tennis courts, all things of that nature. We are full service sports construction in that we handle really everything for the outdoor athletic experience. And in many cases, we will align ourselves with certain partners, such as Matt with the LA, such as Matt with Catilius, to ensure that we deliver best in class showcase facilities on time and, more importantly, on budget. And you've chatted a little bit about change orders here. Obviously, in projects of this nature, these are large scale endeavors that have complexity to them, and there's ever-changing variables associated with them. Through our collaboration, everything that we do well in advance of even getting to this point is to ensure that we turn over every stone and make sure that we know that because of where this project is, what are the minimum requirements that are going to be done, so that way we can come in on budget and eliminate some of the challenges that you might be familiar with otherwise. So I'm going, which button am I hitting here?
The big one in the middle, I believe.
Gotcha, okay.
Hopefully.
Which one am I pointed somewhere?
No. That's really weird. All right, why is the slideshow not going? Well, we'll go to the next one then.
There we go. So just to kick off real quick, we are based down in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, which is Chester County, about 2 hours and 30 minutes south of here. For perspective, if you're not familiar with the area, think of King of Prussia Mall, Valley Forge National Park. They're all local areas that most know for varying reasons. So that's where we are located. We service Pennsylvania, obviously that is our backyard, but we also service the Mid-Atlantic region, whereby we go down into parts of Maryland, New Jersey, Delaware, and in some cases into upstate New York. And as I mentioned, why our partners enjoy working with us is a multitude of reasons, but one, we are one entity that can bring all aspects of a project and all elements of a project into engagement. So that way, when we're working with them on a project, they quickly realize that, hey, I have, beyond the project that we're discussing here today, going forward 3 to 5 years, I'm going to have ongoing needs as it relates to other elements of the athletic experience. Our objective and our key care about is the student athlete. It is making, and that's why these projects are personal to us. It's making sure that we are delivering them the best in class facilities so that they can meet and achieve their goals and dreams of not only competing today, but perhaps taking it to the next level. But as our relationships and engagements go on with our customers, it's making sure that they know that not only are they going to get a straightforward engagement with a lot of transparency and collaboration to ensure that your end game achieves your ultimate goals, it's knowing that going forward, any and all other projects that may be under consideration, whether they choose to work with us or not on those, that they're going to get a straightforward answer and a price that is under consideration that they can know that is true, whether or not they shop that around or not. So we touch upon synthetic turf fields. Design build projects are our expertise, as I stated, taking natural states over to that. We do replacements and the like. And through the years, because of client demand and being able to service their holistic athletic experiences, we've built out all of the verticals where we do tracks, tennis courts, pickleball is a huge craze right now. Everybody's turning their courts in some capacity over to that. We've even moved into where we handle indoor hardwood gyms and so forth. So broadly speaking, this is everything that we do. All of the projects that we do, I would say 9 out of 10, or actually all of them, are procured through CoStars, which is the state cooperative purchasing program. And from an overall products point of view, AstroTurf is the brand of turf that we actually install. We're their exclusive installer and distributor. But more importantly, they're owned by an entity known as the Sport Group, largest international conglomerate for the manufacturing of sports surfacing. So AstroTurf is their brand for synthetic turf. They have Record Tan for tracks, Lycolt, Novacourt for tennis, and so forth. Because we touch upon all of these verticals, we deliver across all these verticals at scale. It affords us the ability to leverage our economies of scale and purchasing power for the benefits of our clients, and therefore brings some reduction in cost savings to any project that we get involved. So as an example, down by us, this is about 10 minutes from our office, Westchester School District. They're the 3rd or 4th largest school district in the state. They have 3 high schools, I think 4 middle schools. It's a large endeavor. Early on, and I'm going back to, I graduated in 1989, not to date myself, but back then they had 1 high school and they added another one. They were an early adopter to when synthetic turf really became around. They had some experiences there that met some of their expectations, not all of them. So they engaged with us to say, hey, we're in the process of building new schools. We're at a point now where we came into, this is their Henderson location, and really collaborated with them to do their entire new stadium. So this was a renovation of sorts, whereby redoing the track, redoing their main field that is here, inclusive of upgrades to bleachers and so forth, as well as lighting. But because their school is so big, and this is again just one of them, we have multiple fields now across every single school or every single high school that's there. They quickly said, hey, we have so much demand for these fields. We need to make sure that our JV players have the opportunity to play on the same fields that our varsity level players do. They contracted with us directly to be able to come in and put it in what we call multi-purpose or an auxiliary field to primarily serve as field hockey, soccer, and lacrosse. And because those engagements had gone so well, again, another need arose, and it was an opportunity for us to come in and build them a bank of 8 tennis courts from a brand new state. This entire area used to just be a concrete parking lot at one point in time. So it's really just meant to demonstrate that once we engage with a client, trust is built, they understand how we deliver, how we do it on time, and how we do it within budget. Now, as we kind of move forward here, this is where we asked Matt to join us, because within every given community, and that is a big point of emphasis for us as an organization, when these projects are undertaking, there's a lot of considerations that can drive cost. Mobilization, where is different types of materials coming from? What does that transport look like? In today's economic times, gas and diesel and those things are not our friends. So we need to be able to figure out ways to bring savings to the customer relationship. And this is where we spawned a relationship with you folks, not, I guess about 5 years ago, maybe at this point in time, 4 to 5, give or take. But I think our initial engagement kicked off with your friends just south of here at Midwest School District, whereby we collaborated with them to build out phase 1, which was their former stadium field. But they ultimately wanted to turn that and become a specific auxiliary field for soccer and for field hockey, as well as be able to play softball in the lower left-hand corner. It's hard to see here because ultimately their envisioning was to build a stadium that housed their track, whereby they could use this field for football and lacrosse specifically as that evolved. But through this engagement, they brought Gatilius up, and that's where we got to meet Matt to say, hey, have you ever heard of these folks? And we said, well, we have, but we've never really engaged with them. Obviously, the school district was a fan of the work that they had done for them previously. So we had an initial engagement with them and said, hey, we hold ourselves to the highest level of quality standards, and we're more than willing to work with partners in the local community so long as they achieve that. And to say the least, they more than exceeded our expectations and have become a valued partner to us in parts of the state where it makes sense for them to engage with us and vice versa. But the benefit of this, beyond being able to leverage their expertise, aligning with our quality standards, and us being able to manage the project to bring that to completion, there's a massive amount of savings that we're able to bring to the engagement because they're right here, they're in the backyard. A lot of the mobilization costs are reduced or minimized dramatically. And for that, when I think about community as well, There's a lot of dollars going around here with these types of projects, right? Being able to keep the lion's share of those dollars within the community, so to speak, by leveraging a partner that is locally based, there's huge value into us, to you, and to the community. So that is where and how we became partners and continue to be so going forward. But as we think about other partners, and this is another project that we've done with them, I just call that out. This is Wilkes-Barre School District. If you're not familiar with some of the new things they've done, they just put in a big new complex. This was a coal ash field, and we had to have, this was a unique engagement whereby they wanted all of this brand new stadium. They wanted to have bleachers with locker rooms underneath, or at least functioning locker or weight rooms, things of that nature, brand new track, brand new field. They were so impressed with the work that we've done. We've already built them 2 additional auxiliary fields on this campus, and we are also in the process of soon to be building them synthetic turf, baseball and softball fields. But again, it was an opportunity to partner with a best-in-class partner who's locally based to deliver upon some of the items that I referenced previously. Jim Thorpe is another one, and this is where I touch upon, bringing in another valued partner such as ELA. We collaborate with them very closely. They have the highest level of credentials and expertise in the development of stormwater plans and everything that is required to bring these things through to the permitting process all the way through. Every single project that we get involved with is different. DEP requires different things as it relates to how water is managed and so forth. So we work very closely with them and leverage their expertise as well as ours to collaborate and bring forward a best-in-class solution that sails through the permitting process with ease, while enabling us to value engineer those projects as holistically as possible, again, for the benefit of cost savings. So these are just some examples of how us and the gentleman, Matt, that you guys obviously know and so forth. I just wanted to call those out because I think it's important to show how we do engage locally. Beyond that, when we get into these projects, we've been going through this exercise with you folks for a little bit. These are broad-based projects that have a lot of considerations and variables. So we like to take the time and go through the field components. What are the use cases for this field? What are the sports that are going to be played upon? There's multiple different types of turf systems that are out there. Identifying what are the best turf systems for your particular use case. What are the aesthetic treatments that you desire to have on that particular field, from letters to logos to line packages, etc. We want to make sure that we're thorough in that engagement with our customers. We explain any and all pros and cons associated with any consideration. Ultimately, you folks are making the decision, and we want to make sure that that is an informed one. We do that same exact exercise along with tracks. There's multiple systems. What are the use cases that we're trying to solve for? What is the track team's aspirations going forward? Making sure that we deliver and put in the best system at the best price that achieves those objectives. When light is a component, we do that as well, and we bring in actually a partner for that, which is Musco. Musco is one of the best, they are the best lighting company internationally that is out there. So we'll bring them into the consideration, and we'll manage their engagement in the construction of lights as we all work harmoniously to ensure that no one's stepping on one another's toes. Then we get into what I call the complex amenities over here. These are your bleachers, your press boxes, your fencing, your scoreboards, all of those little different considerations that have either small or large dollar considerations associated with them, but it's making sure that you understand your care balance may be different than yours and yours. Let's get them all on the table. Let's talk them through pros and cons in terms of safety, functionality, and usage, as well as price considerations. Again, all the information is on the table, and we have the opportunity to help inform you in the path that you want to go forward. So I say that, you saw what that looked like. Here is the outcome. This is Seneca High School, which is out in Erie, Pennsylvania. So we went through that whole engagement with them. Everything that you see here was in just a natural state when we took over. So this was the track, the turf, the baseball, the softball, all the asphalt for pedestrian and ambulatory. No stone was unturned. So just a couple other quick examples. I'm not going to go through a whole laundry list, but it's really just to offer some perspective. So we did this. This is folks that are Mid-Valley, or they're close, over in the Scranton market, east of here. This is what they desired. What was unique about this is they're extremely landlocked. There wasn't a lot of options as it related to how we would go about this. So we had to do a very thorough value engineering process. So we started and did everything that I've already described. Beginning, there's the end. We did this again with Wayne Highlands, Honesdale High School. They're basically football and baseball and football field. Their stadium was usable, but anytime there was rain like we've recently had, it was really just a mud pit. So how do we solve for that? Ultimately, this was the outcome, and they're enjoying that as of this season. So whether we're working with Division III, such as Susquehanna, which is right down the street, or working with what some consider to be elite institutions like at Georgetown, our teams are fully versed in working with entities from the Division I level all the way through the ranks down to school districts and municipalities, and we leverage our expertise and deploy them accordingly for every given project that is out there. When baseball fields, multi-purpose auxiliary fields, this would be Elizabethtown College, Ole Valley, which is a small school district down in Berks County. Just so happens they have one of the top field hockey programs in the state for their particular division. So we've understood exactly what they were trying to achieve with the field, the surface that they put in. Their track was dated, it was old. We redid the whole thing. That is in vogue now. Everybody wants to change from the old school red tracks to having something that represents their color palette for their district. So this is kind of represents that as well. Again, just another auxiliary field or a field that we described, but it would be like in kind to what we've been chatting with you folks about. But again, just to demonstrate the coloration of the tracks and how we're looking to align what we do with the intentions of our customer base. Phoenixville, they're literally 1 mile from our office. This is in our backyard. But as we go through this, everybody's different. Everybody's got, different parcels. Lake Lehman School District, which is adjacent to them, they had 5 acres of land that was just a mud bog, nothing to do. They couldn't use it. So beyond taking care of their stadium, we collaborated with Mr. McGovern up there to figure out what do we do with this area. Now all of a sudden they have 2 auxiliary fields, a stadium field. They can play baseball and softball simultaneously. And with all that export, we built them 2 natural grass fields in the back end of that. They were a forward-thinking district because all of these projects are meant to represent the school district and the community, service your athletes in a safe way. But we're forward-thinking from the standpoint of where they sit at the intersection of multiple highways. How do we monetize this? We can become a travel destination for soccer, field hockey, lacrosse, etc., whereby we can have running 4 or 5 different games all at the same time. So every engagement is different, and how we go about bringing what is initial vision all the way through to fruition. Tennis is obviously something that we do, which is really big. This gives you an idea of what your potential tennis new bank could look like in terms of coloration and so forth. But everybody is different. So whether we're doing Bloomsburg University, a recent partner, or Bowie State, everybody's got different ways of going about it. Again, it's about collaboration, transparency, and so forth. State College Area School District just redid their bank of courts, Slippery Rock, and so forth. So that's where I'm going to end this. But ultimately, again, it was just to offer you context in the scale and scope in which we operate, the level of accreditation that we have amongst our peers. And really, we're not a huge volume-based company from the standpoint of we need to go out and do 500 projects a year. We are thorough, and we want to make sure that every project is done so it delivers a showcase facility. And all the projects that candidly we get beyond my own efforts, a lot of word of mouth. One school district says these guys were fantastic, they were on budget, everything got done. So that's how we as a company like to operate. What we're going to do here is just spend a couple of minutes now going through your exact project, everything that we've done to this point, which is what you care about, but I felt that context was important. So I'm going to bring Andy into the conversation. We'll leverage Matt as well to speak through what we've been putting together from a conceptual point of view at this point, as well as price considerations and the like. Our objective ultimately is to make sure that you guys fully understand that and do a thorough Q&A, ask us any questions. And so that way, as you're thinking forward, ideally, maybe this is something that you consider, at the end of the month for approval, whereby this can become a reality towards the end of 2024.
Got to move the control panel. There we go. Hang on. All right.
So we'll start with the tennis to begin with. And Andy, feel free to dive in here a little bit. But obviously, we're talking about a bank of 6. So I'm going to leverage Matt as well to kind of dive into how we got to this point. What is included here? What are we talking about?
So we're looking at an area that's currently a grass area with some stone parking lots and roadways. This project here encompasses 6 brand new tennis courts, fencing around it, bleacher area, bleacher pad set up for bleachers in the future. We're tying into the right-hand side over here and the top left side into the existing parking lots, carrying through roadways to tie those together. And then that roadway also ties into a new parking lot down towards the south of the project that aids with, soccer facility there and keeping, people parked there where they need to be. So the other aspect of this, I think, as Kathy mentioned, was the lighting aspect of it. The tennis courts have 6 Musco lights. That's what Jeff mentioned, the Musco partnership that we have with them. The soccer field also would be lit up with 50-foot candles of lighting as well, and also tying in parking lot lighting with that the rear light off of the back of the soccer field. That's the general scope of the project. Supporting stormwater and electrical upgrades, things like that. But that's the general 30,000-foot view of the project.
Before we transition to Paulings, is there questions related to this? Rather straightforward, but.
And I'll just add real quickly that this doesn't include lighting. It includes the prep for future lighting, the design aspect for the lighting.
They included the material for the lighting, remember?
Yeah, the prep for it, the lights themselves.
It included the lights themselves, remember? That was the alternate, right?
The alternate piece did have, yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
And that would also be able to do lights at our soccer field as well.
Yeah, so the soccer field,
are you saying what will go in with
so
the?
the soccer field is comprised of 4 lights. They're about 80 foot tall, 4 lights that provide 50-foot candles for the entire soccer field. And then we were trying to throw on some ideas of lighting up the parking lot as well. Instead of doing some sort of separate circuitry, we're going to tie on lights into the back of the poles in the soccer field, face them towards the parking lot, and also light that at the same time. Kind of just combining a value there.
Okay.
So the quote had 2 prices. There's one for without lights, and then there's the alternate of adding the poles and lights themselves, but not the installation of it.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
You could switch over to, there we go. So this is the engagement they were chatting about, at Paulings, and the objective here is obviously to get the track resurfaced. We've put in general renderings here from a coloration point of view aligned with the school. Everything that we do from a rendering point of view is very conceptual at this point. As we move things forward, these get very detailed and get honed in. They go through multiple approval states before anything is obviously, goes to a manufacturing level. I'll call that out. But if you wanted to kind of tie in some more about this.
Yeah. So Lewisburg, Paulings Field was, a track that was in disrepair, needed an upgrade and needed some repairs. So that this project basically comprises taking the existing natural grass field, removing all of that, moving that over to the front of the property where we're going to add some new events, and then the existing grass area will then be converted to turf. The track we were talking about, and taking out the entire asphalt section, repairing the entire asphalt section, putting brand new asphalt in there. So that's starting from scratch, brand new. And then also servicing that with the top tier Recretan M, part of that AstroTurf program that Jeff was speaking of. That's a Recretan M product that's as good as it gets for track surfacing. And then, like you said, about the nice Lewisburg green colors here as we see. So, and the dragon right in the middle. So these are pretty straightforward. But then I mentioned the field events up there too.
So in front of, I believe what's been shared with the board to this point is these renderings and so forth. So that's the project that we've been engaged with, and as I've stated, earlier on in this, there was a thorough level of collaboration to even get us to this conversation, right? So our objective tonight was simply to educate you and make sure you have a comfort level with who we are, how we do it, and why it makes sense for us to collaborate on this going forward, as well as to make sure that you understood these relevant particular scopes of work. And we're big on transparency and collaboration. So we thought, can we have a Q&A session either now, or we're more than happy at any point in time to roundtable separately beyond this engagement. From a timings point of view, and this is where we get involved, and Matt, and not only from an operations point of view, but with ELA, getting this through the permitting process, right? Generally speaking, everything that we do, we prepare all of the civil engineering plans, stormwater management plans, and so forth, go through county conservation district review, DEP review, and so forth. Us and ELA work very closely with that as a transparent engagement where members of the administration can join those conversations. but it's to make sure that everything goes through smoothly and that we've, in essence, engineered these properly whereby they go through with a streamlined pass. You have to account in the permitting process, for new fields as an example, that can take sometimes up to 6 months, right? So we want to make sure that we don't have any hiccups or slowdowns in that regard. The benefit of the volume that we do, and it's not always, but because we do so much and our reputation precedes us, it gives us the ability to sometimes go and do pre-technical or pre-administrative reviews where before we officially submit it, we can sit down, collaborate, allow everything to be smell tested, make sure that all the dotting of the I's and T's are there. Any revisions that are required, we'll get that feedback. So then when we officially do submit, everything's going to go through smoothly. And we try to tighten up that window as much as possible. Because once that permit comes through, we then mobilize and we get to work. And the objective here is that, given the timelines and so forth, if this were an opportunity for us to be approved, at the next board meeting, gives us the ability to quickly run against everything that we've already done. And we've invested significant amounts of time and our monies to get us to this point where hopefully we can move things along and this whole vision can become a reality between now and, as we get into the latter part of the year. Any questions we can answer for you?
Thank you for the presentation. I actually don't have any questions for the presenters, but thank you. I wonder if Kathy, you could share for the group how important some of these improvements will be in terms of teacher feedback, coach feedback, student feedback, and the information you've been getting.
Sure. I would say with respect to the high school facility project, the idea of continuing to work on our soccer lacrosse field area with paved parking, with a road that will complete the ability to encircle the high school, and tennis courts, a sport that our school features for both boys and girls, a lifetime sport, if you will, what it does to enhance our physical education offerings. Those are all boosts and benefits and positives to that particular project. It's a stone parking lot now for our soccer and lacrosse and baseball field. That's an enhancement and an improvement. Lighting the field does allow us to obviously enhance the playing experience, play into the evening, host postseason, and things that we find attractive as well. Conversely, the middle school, a track surface that needs attention, a timely opportunity to build from the inside out and put the turf field in place at the same time as addressing the track renovation. That's a real positive. We talked with our middle school health and PE teachers. They have grand thoughts of wonderful things they can add to be able to utilize the surface, both the turf and the track. Our current clubs and student organizations that utilize that facility now will have opportunity to increase their use. And again, very positively received by coaches, by teachers. I yield the floor. Vince, what haven't I thought of? Paula, anything?
Yeah, I would certainly say that one of the things with the tennis courts is, we have so many girls and boys on the tennis team and have less courts at the community courts to play. So that means less interaction, and ability to play and practice by all of the kids. It's such a great lifelong sport, as we said. Also, just the transportation after school of trying to figure out with the busing of how to get kids and who each day needs to get, a bus, and making sure that, that they're aware that, yes, it stops there. Mr. Jones does a wonderful job of making sure that that's available, but that is another logistical piece. And again, just, increasing the availability of our facilities at multiple times of the day for our athletes, and also community, to be able to use and enjoy and participate in.
Not to put you on the spot, Paula, but about how many students are on the tennis teams, like both boys and girls?
Spring,
if
I
you
can't
know?
say right now, but obviously, but like the girls' tennis team, it easily runs over 20, 25 students. It's one of those sports you don't want to cut anybody,
Right.
you know, from it. With the addition of volleyball this year, I was curious how that would affect tennis, but I mean, our numbers are still, you know, strong in that sport. Just because I think students do realize, you know, that the value of a sport, that they also, you know, so everybody at some point, it's basketball
right.
career is going to end,
Right.
but you know, people have that lifelong enjoyment. Sorry, it looks like I must have hit on a personal note there.
You don't say those things.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Vince, did you want to
We're
tap
addressing
in?
both fields as well, both complexes. I think it's a big piece of it. We're already planning to potentially look at the track as it needs some repairs. So this is doing those, the timing of it is a good aspect. And even the road and the parking lot over at the high school, having a bus drop-off area and just kind of pulling that area to completion is something that is a definite positive.
Thanks. I wonder if Mr. Sokolsik wants to mention sort of the benefit of having more available playing surface, because I know it's wet there again.
Yeah, so Kathy and I met with the health and phys ed teachers, and they felt very strongly that there are existing parts of their curriculum that would improve with you know, improvements to the track and the turf field, and had some ideas for how to further improve the curriculum if that was available. And that area, the Pauling area, is already utilized a lot between phys ed, but also clubs. There's most Fridays in the fall or spring in that area. There are multiple different clubs up there. So I really do think it would overall enhance the middle school area and the experience for our students.
If Mr. Harper is still available, one of the things you brought up was mud pits, multiple places being fixed with installation of turf. And is that something you're commonly seeing that is the reason? Because you mentioned the water drainage and that sort of thing. And I know that's a constant concern with some of our fields.
Yeah, that's always fixed, obviously, with synthetic turf. I mean, you know, there's a maintenance issue with grass and constant need to clear that up and wait for it to dry and wait for kids to get back on the surface. But, you know, obviously you're right up back on the field, and the drainage aspect underneath the synthetic turf, it's always constantly draining. You know, anytime rain hits it, it's going straight through it, and it's being managed underneath it there with underground basins and being removed from the site. So you're never worrying about any kind of water issues.
Thank you. Thank you all for those comments. I think it helps for the public to understand all the benefits that could be gained from these projects.
I do have a question. What's the usable, what would you consider the usable life to be of the field, the usable life of the field and the tennis courts?
Sure. So on the field, I'll take that first. Roughly, so all manufacturers' warranties, you know, are basically standard 8 years, right? And these fields are meant to be played on and get beat upon across multiple sports. You should, with proper maintenance, like anything else, get roughly about 12, 13 years out of the field, right? I tell everybody to have the fiscal wherewithal around year 10 to replace the carpet, you know, to use that word, at that point in time. Really, it does come down to, they're meant to be played on again. How do we maintain these fields? So in our engagements, we're the largest maintenance company in the Mid-Atlantic region. So what we like to do is sit down with our clients and ask them to be honest with themselves. You typically want to groom the field. So to use an ice hockey analogy, you're sort of zamboning the field, right? You want to do that every 80 to 100 hours of use. So through the engagement, we can make a groomer available, which would basically attach to the back of a gator that you probably already have. We teach your team how to do that, the frequencies, the patterns, and so forth. To complement that engagement, you do what's called 2 deep cleanings a year, whereby during one of those engagements, you're going to test for concussion protocols, right? So the deep cleaning process is very different than what a standard grooming is. But the benefit of doing that is to maximize longevity for these fields. So typically you're going to do that roughly around February, March window, coming out of winter, so that way the fields are optimal for spring. And then you're gonna do that typically again around, July, August window, so they're optimal for fall. That complements that. Now, some of our clients have, through the past many years with COVID and all this other stuff, they have lost a lot of staff and haven't been able to bring them back, but their responsibilities have broadened. We have the ability to come in and be here every single month and take it over. So a lot of our clients have just said, hey, you guys manage a field, and we put together something that aligns with budget, whereby our crews are on these fields every single month, much like we do at Wilkes-Barre, Jindorf, et cetera, right? So that's what you should be thinking about in terms of the court. When we're putting in brand new tennis courts like this, those foundations are meant to give you the long haul, whereby, roughly every probably about 7 to 10 years-ish is when you're going to do a resurface of that, which is basically just going in and recolor coding it to refresh and make it pop, right? That's sort of your standard windows. But when you're building out these asphalt profiles, they're meant to give you many generations of life. But roughly speaking, roughly around every 7-ish years to 10 is when you're going to do a resurface, right? So by being able to tie these two projects together, just from a fiscal point of view, we're going in now, and then I don't have, they're on the same kind of frequency going forward, right? And obviously back to the turf, when you're replacing a field, that is a much less financial endeavor versus what we're doing here, because obviously there's a ton of infrastructure subgrade that's going to be required. But again, it's about maintenance, making sure you guys know how to do it, us being honest with one another, what you can or can't do. Everyone goes into it with best intentions, and all of a sudden, it ends up being neglected. That's where, and our crews are available. We have them roaming all the time. So it's a scenario where we'll spot check them. We're just going to get on here, if they're right down the street or wherever, coming by here, let's just pop on there, make sure everything is good, do a proactive search. When we do the deep cleanings and so forth, we go on there, every hash, line package, letter, logo is fully inspected to make sure that the integrity of them is the way it should be. If anything is required, they proactively engage that, right? And again, back to the concussion protocols, you're going to do that once per year. So we'll tie that into the deep cleaning engagement. Really, that's your liability protection to make sure that if an athlete were to fall, hit their head, parent says the field happened to cause a concussion, you have documentation that says otherwise, right? So that's why you do that once per year.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? Thank you again for the opportunity to educate you this evening. If you do have any questions, please feel free to send them over to yourself, and we can collaborate that way and make sure that everything is addressed. Typically, we'll have answers back to you within the next business day.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Appreciate the time this evening.
Thank
Be
you.
well.
Thanks,
All of
Jim.
you. Thank you.
So our next information item would be the 2024 board planning calendar.
Well, that one's pretty straightforward, pretty direct. This document that we look and review each year and share in terms of information. This keeps us organized in our agenda planning and our attention to all matters of business that comes before the board.
And that brings us to the board president's report.
Sure, thank you, Corey. So I want to thank Mrs. Moser and our visitors for their detailed presentations on the upcoming and potential capital projects for the district. I wanted to provide some additional background and highlight a few items that maybe warrant further comment, but I'll start with some common feedback. I know that we often hear from the general public about how our district infrastructure compares to what other surrounding districts, and in particular, how some of our facilities are viewed relative to what other districts in our immediate area have been able to build or provide for their students and their communities. It's always difficult. It's important to emphasize this. We have, every time we talk about spending, we have to talk about how we're funded. It's always difficult to compare ourselves locally. The first and most important point is that Lewisburg is funded differently. We are unique in this region. We're an outlier in terms of the fraction of our funding that comes directly from local dollars. It's much higher than other surrounding districts. We only get about a quarter of our overall budget from the state, and not even 1% of our overall budget from the federal government. And I know in our first look at the district's budget that was provided in November, and then the one we reviewed tonight, we're at our first time kind of looking well over 40 million. And I know that people get concerned about the indicators that that look at potential tax increases. That said, most of what we're seeing in terms of those increases are driven by inflationary pressures on regular operating costs, paying our employees, keeping the lights on, that sort of thing. And the other pressures that we have, and again, Mrs. Moser addressed this, is wear and tear on our buildings. We will always need to replace roofs. We're always going to need to plan to be painting things, to be repaving things, to be repairing sidewalks. Even in the high school, you saw the newest of our buildings. We're already undertaking improvements and entering replacement cycles and repairs for some of that critical infrastructure. So even with all of that, all those budgetary pressures and the upkeep considerations in mind, we can't ignore the need for ongoing facilities improvements. I know many of you have heard me say this, it rains in Lewisburg all the time. And it's, I think it's a matter of getting our kids outside on suitable playing surfaces, having enough time. We don't want teams competing with each other for time to practice. We don't want to create friction between teams, coaches, girls and boys, that sort of thing. Even when it isn't raining, often we find that our fields are still wet and swampy, and we're letting them rest because we don't want to tear them up so that they're ready for competition. And it's come up so much recently. So I want to point out our district has exactly one turf field. That field is used extensively by the high school gym classes, the boys and girls soccer and lacrosse teams, as I mentioned, for practice and competition. And in the spring, it's also sometimes used by our middle school soccer teams. And it's a better playing surface year round, and even in all the rainy seasons. And so I want to acknowledge that in December, we recognized our athletes, and I really do want to credit the field hockey coaching staff for taking the opportunity to make a statement about how we are comparing to their local competitors. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is the whole board is very, very conscious of the expenses, the upkeep, the inflationary pressures. And I hope that we might keep an open mind as we continue to discuss the budget and capital projects. And in conclusion, the really important thing is I want to continue to thank the Green Dragon Foundation, because without them, we almost couldn't consider any of these projects moving forward. So as a message out to the public, they have been such an amazing partner that we really do owe them gratitude for even allowing us to think about taking on some of these projects. So that's my report for this evening.
Thank you. Vince?
All right, good evening. I just wanted to also congratulate Mr. George Drozen. I know he's not here anymore, but his years of service, appreciate getting to know him over the last few months in my role. His work on safety planning has been appreciated. He's been digitizing a lot of our safety plans and helping us in that regard. And always seeing him at district games and things like that. He's always in the Lewisburg gear, ready to go. I also wanted to thank our FCS teachers for doing a great job with their presentation tonight. They did a fantastic job showcasing how their program has evolved over time. And those topics that are about how to be an adult are very, very important at the middle school age as well into high school. This past week, we've had multiple storms. We've got some snow this past weekend. We've had some slush that happened then and some rain. And I want to thank Delbert in the audience there for his work, and the maintenance team, the custodial teams for having our parking lots and our sidewalks safe and clear for our students and staff. This week, Mrs. Moser and I did a tour of our buildings and visited 3 of the 4 buildings to do kind of a state of the district. I'm giving some updates to our staff. We'll be hitting Kelly next week, but we're able to share some updates with them about safety and food service, some curriculum updates, technology, health and wellness, and just kind of went through a lot of bullet points with them, kind of a one-way conversation, but we were just really telling them things that are happening, things that we're talking about and thinking about to be on the same page with them. So that was some good conversations we had this week. In the areas of technology, Mr. Jeremy Long, our tech supervisor, and I have been working on a database of all of our tech subscriptions. We have a lot of them in the district. We've got subscriptions that cover all of our staff, all of our students, as well as our parents, like Power School. We've got other ones that are specific to buildings or to grade levels, departments, even individual people that need a specific subscription. managing all of those things is a big task, and making sure that we have the right subscription, that we're paying the right amount for them, and just making sure. So we were working on just collecting that all into one database and having that information available to us. And also, I've been reaching out to them and getting usage reports from the vendors to talk about how we can get that best product for us. Is it being utilized? Is it being efficient for us? So I've been doing a lot of work on that the past month or so. And then lastly, I wanted you to pull out in your folder, there is a comprehensive planning timeline that I wanted to present to you. In December, I showed you more of a very broad-based one. This is a little bit more specific and a little bit more detailed than the last time. So we have applied for an extension for our comprehensive plan to give an extension to June 30th. It was due March 31st originally. That's been accepted and gives us a little bit more time in line with our fiscal year. This month, I'm focusing on kind of doing some plan prep, already populating the platform with some details that are already known, putting in our current mission and vision statement that we can actually work from and look at those things. Also looking at making a survey to get some qualitative data from our community is kind of my focus for this month. And then I hope to have an initial steering committee meeting for comprehensive planning in February 1. Basically, those bold-faced ones that are on there, that's looking at the first Thursday of every month, kind of having a reoccurring meeting for that steering committee. Jamie, Jordan, and Ashley are on that steering committee. And then we also need to include people from the community, parents, staff, administrators need to be a part of that as well. And so just wanted to make sure that fit with your schedule. So if you guys can look at those 4 dates, we can definitely change those, but I wanted to kind of pick a reoccurring date if possible. It's the Thursday before the first board meeting of the month. The focus of February, as you might see on there, is focusing on needs assessment and me working with principals and connecting during a 2-week period of time, maybe visiting twice and finding out what are the strengths and challenges of that particular building, taking that information back to the steering committee in March. Also looking at vision and mission with those groups as well to give us some more details for that following meeting, getting that survey out as well. In March, my focus is looking more at students, connecting at each student level group and pulling a forum together and asking our elementary kids, what do you like about school? What could be improved? Getting their voice in this plan is also very important. There's also some additional supplemental plans we have to get completed, so I'll draft a lot of those. They're already in there from previous years, but just updating those, making sure those things are still current. And then April looks at a parent and community forum, having a plan somewhat together at that point, a drafted plan so that our parent and community can give us feedback yet. It's not a finished plan yet, but their feedback can be utilized before we finalize that plan. And then have a 28-day period to post it on the website for the further community to look at that as well, to be able to meet that deadline of June 30th, hopefully submitting it on June 28th after the June 27th board meeting. So I welcome any feedback on that timeline from any of you. Any questions on that? I wanted to share that with you this evening.
Okay. Board, committee, and liaison reports. Anybody have anything to report on that?
The JOC highlights are there. It was our standard reorganization meeting. One thing to highlight, the JOC heard from several community members, alumni from Sun, and also the former teacher who recently retired, about the advertising, art, and design. There's a little bit of a miscommunication that ad art was being dropped completely. Ad art is actually being tasked with the Occupational Advisory Committee, that is comprised of people in the field who advise Suntech on what's relevant and what's not. Ad art obviously is ever changing, and the state has not necessarily kept up with what's current. So the SIP codes are a little outdated, and that's kind of, again, the notion studying to the test versus studying to what's practical and real. So that's kind of what's going on. But there's a little bit of a miscommunication that we were dropping the program. It's actually, I think, don't quote me on this, I believe the highest attended program, the most popular program that site. So we weren't getting rid of it, just kind of revamping it. So.
Okay. That will move on to the consent agenda. Is there any items that need to be held out?
I would like to request to hold out the vape detection sensors for separate vote.
Sure.
It's item H.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Paula, could we have a roll call vote for the consent agenda minus the item H?
I think we need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do need a motion. You're right.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion before we go to a vote? All right. The consent agenda without number H, letter
Okay.
H.
Ms. Enos,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lyons,
Yes.
Dr. Mattis,
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay. And now, is there, I'm assuming we would like to discuss?
Yes. So move for item H. The discussion, I just had questions, because the write-up says about 4 additional sensors, and in the price, it has 8 additional sensors. And I just wasn't sure if just on the need for the additional sensors.
Yeah, so they're for our locker rooms. It's 4 for each locker room. So
Okay.
there is 2 for the locker room side and 2 for the team room side of each bathroom. So it is a total of 8.
Okay. And then that would be like, we would not need any additional, and just, it seems like we've spent a lot of money on the vape sensors, so I just, like, this would finalize everything at the high school with it.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and we haven't yet purchased for the middle school, is that correct?
Installation has started. You've been updated.
They're done at the middle school. Okay, so then we're completely done with the vape sensors after this.
Yes, and we're going to install these ones with our own staff.
Okay,
So this is the purchase of those vapes.
okay, that was
Sensors.
my only question, just clarification.
Not vapes.
Vape detector.
So is there a motion then to vote on the vape sensors?
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, Paul.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lyons,
Yes.
Dr. Mattis.
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer,
Yes.
and Ms. Enos,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay. I believe that brings us to citizens' comments to the board on non-agenda items.
We do not have any comments online.
Any in the room?
It's not an agenda, but it was based on a presentation tonight. Is that okay?
At this point, yes.
Sure, come on up to the podium.
Sorry.
I don't have a card, so I think.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
you
can
and
state your
you have
name
to
and
give
your
us a
address.
name and
please.
address. for the
Courtney Remy,
record.
240 Sunnyside Drive in Lewisburg.
Thank you.
So first and foremost, I'm really excited about all of the additions to, or potential additions to the fields. I mean, I live very close to the Pauling Sports Complex and see that area in general flood frequently. So I know exactly what the mudding issue is. And, you know, thinking about what was presented at one of the previous meetings, maybe last one or the one before, about the field hockey team needing a field that is for their play. I think it's really exciting that this was already in the works, it sounds like, or at least thought of. So that's amazing. Thank you for that. The added curriculum benefits for every student is phenomenal. I mean, when we think about these things are gonna reach middle to high school. My kids are still in elementary school, so I'm very excited that they'll be able to take advantage of that in their phys ed programs. And a couple of things that I just stepped out of the room to talk to the gentleman that presented, and I just wanted to be transparent about what I asked them about. As a high school athlete, I was ran track, which now is shocking because no, but we ran at multiple different tracks around the Pittsburgh area. And there was one track that was black, and it was always something that as an athlete, I don't know if it was psychological, but we always felt it was a hotter track and a more difficult track to run on. So I would just advise that as an athlete, we think about that level. I think the black looks really cool, but I would just maybe think about that from an athlete perspective, if anyone has ran on a black track before. And then similarly with the tennis courts, I've now transitioned from track to tennis. So the black on the tennis courts, again, is just something that we need to consider when we get to the summer months. It gets very hot. So I would just think about that. And then I asked the group about any promotional materials that they could help us with. So as a Green Dragon Foundation advisor, I had done some research on their past projects and found that Midwest had a couple of different videos that they did for them. And they were really great. So I think it would be amazing if we were thinking about any fundraising for this to get some help with the renderings that we could share with the public as we think about fundraising and what that looks like. Spoiler alert, they said they'd be happy to work with us on that. So just something that I think would be really helpful. And then last, as we're thinking about branding on the field, the dragon is our dragon. And I think sometimes it translates a little differently when you're looking at it at different viewpoints. And perhaps the L, if we were thinking about our existing brands, might look a little bit cleaner and easier to make sure that when we maintain it, we're not thinking about 3 different colors that need to be maintained at the middle of the field as opposed to just 1 or 2. So those were things that I thought of as we were doing this. Again, very exciting. I think it's amazing that we were already looking at this. And thanks for sharing some of the other proposed projects, Kathy. I think that is very helpful for the community to know about.
Thank you. Any other comments on non-agenda items?
Okay, I'll go then.
All right.
Do you need my card?
Yes, please. That saves you having to announce your.
I think you know who I am.
Well, I do.
By now.
It's really more about the address.
Well, Jordan knows where my address is because he put in my dog fence.
Oh, well.
Yeah, he's been in my home, so you know what I mean. But he knows where I live too. So, well, thanks for having me tonight. I wanted to read a letter from an employee here at the school. It's entitled "Demoted for Demanding a Living Wage." And it's a letter to the editor that was in Standard Journal. Before school children see their teachers, they often see food service and custodial workers. That is who I represent as a food service worker and officer of my union, AFSCME Local 794. We have been at the bargaining table trying to negotiate a fair contract that includes a living wage for those of us who dedicatedly do these essential jobs. Unfortunately, our employer, the Lewisburg Area School District, has been proposing nothing more than starvation wages while launching an anti-union campaign that is doing nothing but hurting workers and our district as a whole. On top of that, I have been demoted at work, and it is hard not to believe that it is because of my role in negotiating not only on behalf of myself, but fellow employees. The demotion also came after I filed a harassment complaint. This demotion has hurt me both emotionally and financially, and it has made my living situation even more difficult. Not only was I demoted, but they also reduced my pay by more than $4 an hour, as well as cut my hours, leaving me to wonder how I will provide for my family. I now make $12.11 an hour after working 8 years in the district, lowering each paycheck by almost $500, costing me $1,000 per month. Currently, some of the workers of LASD make less than $12 an hour. I don't have to tell anyone reading this that this is an inadequate and insulting level of pay
especially for such hardworking, dedicated employees who keep this district running. When they actually came to the table, this school district proposed to double employees' healthcare costs, give them 25 cents per hour each year wage increase, rejected longevity increases that they previously provided to non-union employees. This is unacceptable. We need the community to continue to support us. Please email school board members at dragonk12.pa.us and ask them to return me to my previous position. Ask them to provide all their employees dignity, respect, and a living wage. Ask them to respect their workers and respect their union. Thank you, Amanda Forrester, Lewisburg. So I sent an email to follow up because I had requested the employees' salaries. And I learned that Amanda has still been demoted. And when I reached out to you, Superintendent Moser, I sent the following email. And this was on December 28th. I spoke with Amanda yesterday. She told me her wage is still not what it was prior to the district demoting her as part of their anti-union campaign. She accepted another position because you demoted her to a position that paid $11 an hour during a living wage campaign. That's why she wrote the letter to the editor in the newspaper. I wonder if you read the letter to the editor. That's what I stated at the board meeting that you were present at. And that's what I stated, that these actions are retaliatory, and I said that in July. I would appreciate if the district would stop playing dumb with me and return her wage. You were at the bargaining table, Superintendent Moser. As a superintendent of the school, are you refusing to correct this? I'm asking only because some of your school board members are under the impression that it is illegal to do anything to correct this. Is this your position as well? I would like to know before I address it publicly at the next board meeting. And here I am.
Thank you.
There's no response from the board on that?
No, we don't typically respond publicly.
Okay, so there's no response on what the board has done here. We're just gonna ignore it. That's what people are gonna do? You want me to just keep coming back to these meetings?
As a resident, you can come speak at the meeting anytime you want to. It's a public meeting.
Okay, so you're okay with the demotion then, right, Corey?
We don't answer questions.
Well, you are. By your inaction, you are okay with it. You're consenting to it.
So you're allowed.
So I'm gonna hold the
during your
board,
time?
and I'm gonna hold the people that are paid $110,000 a year and $170,000 a year, I'm gonna hold them accountable. Because I do live here. And you should have thought about that before you ran your little anti-union campaign. You should have thought about it, because my newborn that I should be at home with right now is alone because I have to come out here because you want to demote people that stood up for workers for a living wage. That's what this is about. This is about you dividing workers, whether they're union or non-union. That's what you divided. That's what you decided to do. And you guys are cowards. That's why you sit there and you say nothing, and you're not going to get away with it. So have a nice night.
Good night. Director's comments. Jamie.
Okay. Well, I know George is not here anymore, but congrats on him on retirement. Other than that, I think the FACS program is amazing. I know my son loved it last year. He loves to cook, and I know he really enjoyed the teachers. And I think it's great how many directions are going with it. I think, like they said, there is a lot of schools that are cutting those programs. And the fact that we are offering it and continuing to offer it, we'll have it as a mandatory class in the middle school, but also just seeing the videos and seeing the diversity of who's in those classes, to see those pictures look so different from the pictures they're showing in 1960 of just girls, you know, learning how to prepare for their husbands, I think is really fantastic. And it is life skills. And, you know, we have a lot of men that don't know those skills because it was thought to be a woman's skill. So I think it's great the way it's being presented in a way, and obviously so engaging that then in the high school people are signing up elective for these classes. So I think that's wonderful. That's all I got.
Justin?
I'll echo all of that. Actually, my thought was, I feel like maybe a portion of this should actually be required in high school, right? And something to think about, I suppose. And I also wanted to just take a moment to thank Mrs. Moser and Mr. Hoover for taking some time with me personally the other day to answer my questions and just help to acclimate me to the board a little bit more, to the area, to culture and tradition and all the things that we kind of talked about for an hour or two. I forget how long we were together, but we got rolling there for a second. And so thank you both for doing that. I appreciate that, that help and guidance.
I just want to be thankful for Mr. Drozen again. He left a really nice legacy at the middle school that I can tell is very much appreciated, also by our family. And for teachers in general, I was reminded when Mrs. Galt got up to speak of her personal call to our house sometime in March or April of 2020 to check on my son to see how he was doing. I think maybe he had her for homeroom or something. And anyway, it just seeing her and hearing her voice and remembering that personal phone call just made me think how special our teachers are. So that's all I have.
Jordan? Congrats, George. And Michael, that was a great, great comments from you. I mean, it was great to hear from all of the administrators, and I think we all know George will be missed, and just the legacy that he left here in the district, serving his alma mater. So again, very well-deserved retirement.
Jamie.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Kristen.
I know you know who I am.
Whatever you
I
need.
would, yeah, whatever. At this point, Corey, whatever. I would repeat everything that was said. Obviously, a huge thank you to George. Thank you for the books. Paula, I'm sure you spent some time on that, and the librarians. So thank you. I just want to use a couple minutes to give two little plugs tonight. One is if you are shopping at Giant between now and March 31st, and you get the little prompt to like, do you want to round up? Hit yes, because that comes to us to help to the district, to help with some food insecurity initiatives. Giant runs a great national program, and we're lucky enough to receive all the roundups from the Lewisburg Giant. So a lot of times I don't know who those places are when they ask. This time you know, so say yes if you're comfortable. The other little plug I want to give just really encompasses everything we talked about tonight. We have money in our capital reserves to pay for all the things we talked about. We absolutely do. We wouldn't be talking about them if we didn't, probably. And we are obviously very aware of and appreciative of and grateful of everything that Green Dragon Foundation does for us to help us raise funds. Like Erin said, we wouldn't probably even be able to think of a lot of these things if GDF wasn't there. I do think, though, we are in such a unique situation that, as Kathy mentioned, we do kind of need to start looking at other sponsorships, we're calling them. And I think with the things that we're talking about tonight, these are great ways for large businesses in our area to make larger donations than they maybe would normally have in the past or never have before. Because it will benefit them with their marketing. Now, if they want to put their emblem on our roof so the planes can see it when we replace roofs, that's great. But something at the Pauling track, something on the tennis courts, that then, even though we have the funds for it, that then allows the funds we have to be used in other ways. We have a long list of things we need to address. We also have ongoing issues like every other district in our country to be able to help our students with behavioral, mental health, special needs. And it takes staffing and that takes funding. And if we can get some help from companies or entities in our area with some of these bigger things, that leaves more money for us to be able to use with staffing. Not that we're not doing all the things we should, because we are, and I don't want anybody to say that's what I said.
but we have to be able to get all the help we can. So that's my plug. So anybody you work for, anyone you know, talk to them about helping us out.
Kathy, I didn't ask, are you good? You got?
I got something.
Go
Yeah.
right ahead.
No, what a night. I knew when we put the agenda together, it was going to be multifaceted. We were going to celebrate George. We were going to appreciate an academic spotlight with an awesome part of our curriculum. We were going to address some facilities needs and begin to share the information to make sure that that's understood, that these things are under consideration. A lot goes into a board meeting, but it's not lost on me that this is also recognizing and thanking you as our board members present tonight, and Erin via Zoom, and Ashley and Marianne, who aren't physically here with us, but this is the kind of work for which we are ever so thankful to have essentially volunteers donating time, effort, energies to take part in tough discussions and considerations, as well as celebrations and recognitions. It's amazing that it's all encompassed in the position of serving as a school board director. My gratitude, my continued appreciation for it. And again, I think tonight just really illustrated that there's all of that in this position of board and school district board in our community. I'm going to end with a bit of a program note. Our next school board meeting is on site at Sun ATI in New Berlin. On January 25th, that's where our regularly scheduled school board meeting will be. We'll be meeting there at 6 p.m. to take a tour of the facility and appreciate that program. For those who may wish to join our meeting in person that evening, we'll be on their West Campus in a facility that they call the Cherry Street Bistro. And I look forward to our being there, appreciating what's at Sun, and conducting our regular business meeting there at that time. Thank you, Mr. Heath.
You bet. So I got just a couple of things, and then I will give you the last word as usual, Erin. Congratulations to George on his retirement. That's a huge milestone, and hope he enjoys it. I'm sure he will. And I want to thank the school district for the books. I particularly enjoy them this year, especially you, Paula. I know you had a hand in choosing those, and every one of them put a smile on my face for one reason or another. And the only other thing I would add was I need to ask the board for 5 minutes of exec session afterwards. There was one more item we need to discuss. It really will not take very long. But so with that, I will turn it over to Erin.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you again for overseeing the meeting. And I'll tell everyone I'm in Wisconsin, and I just learned we're going to get like a foot of snow, and I may not make it home anyway as fast as I hope to tomorrow. But anyway, I'm glad I could join via Zoom. I was really happy to see the facts presentation. I got to know Claire through the Gold program a little bit more, and I got to know Heidi through Fun Nights as a chaperone. She volunteers a lot of her time at the middle school and is really responsive to the kids. So that's it's great to get to know our teachers outside of sort of the school day and see them around kids. That's also how I got to know George pretty well. For anyone who's been listening for a while, you know that I've never won Mother of the Year, according to George. And it's something, if we had an opportunity to properly roast him, I'm sure I would have brought up. But he was a really fun person to work with and get to know. I also was at his table for our previous strategic planning, and he had great insights, having been a person in the district and then having been in his role and working with that very unique age of students. And the other thing I wanted to say is it is really helpful. Kristen, your comments were perfect. Actually, the rest of what I was going to say, you pretty much covered. So even though we didn't talk about it, I'm glad that we're on the same page. And I think a lot of people in the on the board and in the community are on the same page. We have competing interests, and it'd be great to get some help. So I like your plea for assistance. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I think I can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I don't take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you. And we'll meet in exec session quickly, I promise.